Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm your host Faizan Akbi with the prayer. May Allah keep you all safe, healthy, blessed in your life and hasten the appearance of Imam of our time, inshallah, and make us and our families and loved ones one of their true companion, inshallah. Today, the topic we are about to discuss is related to allegiance to Imam of our time and Imam Hussain alayhi salam, because when we are celebrating ARBA'EEN recently, and we are still going through these days of mourning, and in few weeks time these mourning weeks will be finished. And when on ARBA'EEN we see everyone is holding a flag of Labbaik Ya Hussein, so we will try to understand what does this Labbaik Ya Hussein means, and what does it mean to have an allegiance to Imam of our time, and how they both are connected to each other. And when we see the Qiyam of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Karbala or Ashura, we understand one thing is that the purpose of Imam Hussain alayhi salam was to liberate all humanity from the yoke of ignorance. And are we doing enough to do that? And are we helping towards helping our youth to do that as well? And what kind of responsibilities do we have in that context? And do we owe any responsibility in that context? Are Because when we read the narrations of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says he has been given around 10,000 doors of knowledge when Rasul Khuda sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away. Before that, he has given 10,000 doors of knowledge, and each door has further 1,000 doors. And how many doors do we have as the Sharia now in this today age and time? Because when Imam Sadiq, Jafar Sadiq, has been asked by a companion, and he has been asked by a companion that how many doors does the Sharia have? At that time he said less than two. So what is the condition now, and are we working enough to work towards that or not? What is the meaning of that allegiance to Imam of our time, and what are the promises we are supposed to make, and what is really required to do by us, and whatever we can do in that perspective. We do have very honorable panel of guests with us. We have Maulana Zainul Abidin Kasafi with us, and we have Dr. Inayatullah Indarabi and Sayyid Mohsin Abbas, and all will move towards our guest. Assalamu alaikum, Maulana, and Dr. Inayatullah Indarabi and Sayyid Mohsin Abbas. I'm really honored to have you all on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today on this important. Yes, Maulana, I can't hear your voice properly. I guess if you could speak louder. No, I can't. Yeah, now it's better. Moving on to Malana first, Malana, we see that morning days are going on, and in couple of weeks they will be ending hopefully. So, what do you think when we are walking towards Arbaeen, and we are holding we are holding flags of Labbaik Ya Hussein in this answer of Hal min Nasir Yansurna? So, what is the meaning of that Labbaik Ya Hussein? What do you think, and what narration says about it?
Shukran, sister, for having us with you and our respected brothers on the show today. Of course, the Yawm al-Arba'een and the 40th day after the anniversary of the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and the 72 companions in Karbala is a day which we would understand to mean the epitome of victory, when in the year 61 of the Hijrah, 32,000 men came together to kill Imam Hussein alayhi salam and to destroy the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam came forward, not only himself, along with his brothers, with his sons, with his family members, and 72 companions. But not only that, along with their wives, their children, their daughters, their sisters, and even some of them came with their mothers. We remember the companion Wahab al-Kalbi, who came along with his newlywed wife and his mother, and they came solely out of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in defense of al-Islam, and in defense of this message of liberation, a message which protects the people of the world. And so when 32,000 men gathered to kill them on the day of Ashura in 61 of Hijrah, if we look today at the ARBA'EEN procession, where 25 to 30 million people converge on Karbala to say, Labayka Ya Hussein, that we are here to serve you, O Hussein, then we understand the true reality of the victory of Imam al Hussein when he was martyred on the land of Karbala. And so the first aspect of Arba'een for us today is that Arba'een is indeed a symbol of victory, and it's a symbol that martyrdom equates victory. I think this is the first lesson that we take from Arba'een. But when we are walking as so much people, Muslims and people of different faiths and different denominations, to recognize the sacrifice of Imam al Hussein and come together, so much people, then Labayka Ya Hussein should not only be a symbol that we are reciting, but Labayka Ya Hussein should be a pledge that we make with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, where we say that, oh Hussein, we are at your service. And so in our lands where we come from, if in 61 after Hijrah, you rose to stand up against oppression and you've identified the tyrant of your time, which was the Yazid, then if we are to inculcate the slogan, Labayka Ya Hussein, we are at your service, then we should identify the Husseinis of our time, and we should also identify the Yazidis of our time. And like Imam Hussein, we should be able to come together to rise, to oppose, and to confront the Yazidis of our time. And of course, today they've manifested themselves in the case of those that oppress the people of the world. And so Arba'in, it is a transformation within yourself. It is a pledge across the heart that will make to Imam al Hussein that in the current age we will walk his path and like him stand firm for truth, stand firm for justice, and of course to have the inculcation of humanity within us to oppose injustice, oppression, and tyranny.
Thank you so much. This is the real meaning of Labbaik Ya Hussein, to stand against the Yazid of our time and do whatever we can in order to like bring justice and social justice and humanity. So I'll move on to Sayyid Anadullah and Rabi. Dr. Sab, I would like to ask you, like, how do you see the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, its universality and how it works, and when you see the walk of Arba'een and people gathering from different places and in from different color, creed, and languages they speak and all that. So how do you see it work, and what are your thoughts on that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The walk of Arba'een and the procession and the people, the millions converging at Karbala, uh, and I have seen people walking by foot, uh, miles walking by foot, and just out of their love and out of their out of something which words perhaps cannot describe and or which cannot be quantified. There are the there's a lot to life which is not quantifiable, and we are living in an age where everything must be quantifiable. But these people, without any pulls or pressures, without any force, they could afford to go in any aeroplane or any luxurious car, but they prefer to walk. It's a respect, it's a love, and to me, it's a it- it's an acknowledgement that we have failed Hussein. We have left him alone, and we could not be there. But now we are saying the back, but this comes out of an acknowledgement that he was left alone and he had to go through what he went through. But coming to the martyrdom of Imam, you know this. this has to be this is not a standalone. It's not an isolated event. It has to be seen and understood in the totality of things. The totality of things is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent human beings. It's so it is so clearly mentioned in Quran, and in a very metaphorical, poetic way, sort of. Poetic, I mean, in a very sweet way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned this episode of Adam being sent to earth, and then the Iblis arguing with God, and there is a very sweet dialogues. And Allah sent Adam and to this world, to this planet, and he made all arrangements that this human being, who is already committed to God, who has already said, when Allah asked them, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Rabb? They said, yes, Bala. And every one of them said, Bala. They are already committed. And Allah sent them to this planet, and He made this world full of glamour, full of so many things which could deceive human beings. But He made all the arrangements that this progeny of Adam, they should return to their Lord. As we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are from God, and to Him is our journey. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ensured, He made it sure that he should come back to me very successful, as a successful person who was sent to the planet, and he has returned to me successfully. He has been my slave on this earth. And for this he sent messengers, and in the message of the messengers, and this point I want I want the people who are watching this, please give attention to this, that in the message that messengers gave to the people, this was what was the core of the message. The message was the human being, the person. Now, as we know, as we pray and fast and all this, but can you imagine? I'm asking, and I'm appealing the reasonable faculty of which everyone has, the common sense. I'm asking, is it possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he prescribed these things, salat and fasting and all this, but He did not make an arrangement of how we will live together as society, as a polity, how we will be governed, how our collective life will be organized. What was it left unaddressed? Is it possible? Is it possible that if you leave these things unaddressed, the person, the children of Adam, the progeny of Adam, they will be successful, knowing nothing that how we arrange our polity, how we govern ourselves, how we become a society, nothing about that. And how come they will be successful? How come this is not a part of the message which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said? I mean, this is a common sense. And I am saying that this was the core of the prophetic message. This was such a core that Imam Khomeini, alayhi rahmah, in his letter to Imam Khamenei, who is now the supreme leader of Islamic revolution, when he was the president of Iran, he wrote him a letter and he told him that establishing Islamic order is prior to everything else. It is prior to the Allah's. If you have to suspend Hajj, you can do that, but first you have to create Wilaya and Imama. You have to create an Islamic order in which people will live. Do you leave people to the mercy of satanic forces? And if you don't create a wilayah, if you don't create an Islamic order, how can you ensure that people will live their social, political life properly as God wants? This was the issue. This was the issue before Imam Hussain. And we can't critically look at the action of Imam. Imam is inspired. We can't say, should he have come to Karbala or not? Should he have come with family or not? We have to take it granted. What he did is right. And then we have to read meaning into it. The meaning is that the cause was something, that the goal was something, that Imam Hussain chose to sacrifice his life, and he chose to make such a sacrifice because the cause was like that. And I must tell you, the Pakistani scholar Ayatollah Jawad Naqvi, he recently said, and I agree with him, he said these majalis and what we do in Muharram, he said this is all good, obviously, Mourning and Matam and all this. He said we have been doing this, we have grown with this, but he said all of this has come at a cost. And the cost is that we are ignoring the purpose of Shahada. We are ignoring, at the cost of ignoring the Imam's purpose, we are doing Matam and we are doing Azawad. This is a very valid point. If this purpose has to be properly explained, and as I said in the beginning, not in a standalone, isolated thing. As you said, you are right in a sense. As you said, Imam Hussain wanted to liberate humanity and all this, but just given that, it does not mean a lot, and we can't. We have to read the original meaning in it. It may not be in tune with the present day metaphor, present day political narrative, because we have to demolish the political narrative, present day narrative, because what it is based on is simply paganism. It is Greek and Latin pre-Christian Jahiliyyah, which is the base of the modern civilization. So we may not carve out a narrative which is in tune with, as some brothers of the Ahl Sunnah, they say, no, we have democracy. The first caliph was chosen by people. It's people's will. No, don't endear yourself to people around you. Say things which are original and which are authentic. So
Thank you so much.
that's what I wanted to say.
And that's wonderful points you have made. Thank you so much. Moving to Sayyid Muhsin Abbas. Muhsin Bhai, can you, how we have seen the ARBA'EEN walk yesterday, and we have seen the big banners of Quran with certain ayat on that whole, walk and all that. So, what are your thoughts on that? What is the message being conveyed through Karbala? Shrine of Imam Hussain. Obviously, this was the kind of place where a shrine was very close, and people holding the banners of Quran with different ayat on that. So, what do you think? What is the message being given to the world, and is it going to the people they want to give this message to, or how do you see it?
Assalamu alaikum to my colleagues, Dr. Andrabi and Brother Gaddafi as well, and yourself, Sister Faiza, and my condolences to the entire humanity and Ummah on this occasion of ARBA'EEN. Your question really does, I think, go to the heart of some of the things that Dr. Andrabi has already highlighted, but I'll try and, in my own limited way, try to supplement it. But look, what message does this particular ARBA'EEN march give? Well, if I was to look at it from a non-Muslim perspective, because, I mean, a Shia presumably knows exactly what this is all about. If I was to look at it from a Sunni perspective, or a Christian perspective, or a secular atheist perspective, or a Zionist perspective, of course, I'll have a very, very different view of what this march is all about and what it symbolizes. So if I stick to the perspective of an ordinary non-Muslim who is neutral, who has no grudge against Islam necessarily, and has no knowledge even of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, or ARBA'EEN, or the Shia symbolism, then I'd say that it's a failed opportunity. Because invariably, what tends to happen with all of the things that, certainly those who are the lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the current lovers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, is it's done with a mindset and a mentality which is very inward looking, in my opinion. It's done with the presumption that everybody knows what Imam Hussein is about and what this mission was about. It's done with this presumption that everybody will automatically understand the symbolism that exists within this occasion, or Ashura. It's done with the naivety of failing to understand what the current state of media is across the world, the internet. It's done with a naivety about the opportunity that we have in terms of replenishing the purpose of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And it's also done with actually a complete divorce of reality and of contemporary obligations and duties we have. Where do you see within the current ARBA'EEN or any of the Ashura commemorations a real link, a real definitive link to Imam Mahdi Akhir Zaman? Please tell me, could somebody tell me clearly where the Oath of Allegiance takes place, even on ARBA'EEN, where we actually go and create a manifesto or a sense of direction for the rest of the year for the Ahli Tashayyu or the lovers of Imam Hussein? Where is the clarity? I find it very difficult, other than seeing a lot of people walking in the direction of a symbol of purity and no doubt a symbol of light. What else is there? You see, I think that the occasion misses the point, the symbolism misses the point, the organizers miss the point, and the point really is, first of all, your bay'ah, your obedience and your submission to the cause. Because Imam Hussein alayhi salam talked about our affair. He talked about it at the Hajj before he left. Every Imam, every one of the Aimah after him talked about our affair. So what was our affair? And I think Dr. Andrabi very lucidly put the point forward that their affair was to be able to work not only on a basis of the micro units of an individual, but also the family unit, but also then the community unit, and then the societal unit, and indeed the state. They weren't concerned with people venerating them or adoring them. They weren't into this narcissism or ego thing of we have to be raised so high and our status has to be so, regulated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's status for Imam Hussein and the Aimam Masumeen and the prophets is not something humanity can take away or add to. It is there, simply there. We should not delude ourselves that we, by turning up or in some way raising the name of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein Islam's name is written in the stars. It's in eternity. It's there in paradise. It's there writ large across all hearts which are truly open. No. Our duty is something else. And what Imam Hussein Islam told us to do was that we have to follow him in his example of reforming society and joining those who are in our time the reflections and the focal point of truth and integrity and justice. I think that we do miss this point. First of all, we miss the point in terms of making our youngsters and ourselves understand that Imam Mahdi alayhi salam is here, he exists, and he is in a desire for us to fulfill his affair and to do the things which will fulfill his affair. So now, what are the things that we ought to do? First of all, they stand against taghut, they stand against falsehood, they stand against the idols which take us away from the divine path and towards creating a civilization in this world which is along the lines and rooted in prophetic and Quranic vision. We've never done that in our history. The reality is that Imam Ali alayhi salam had 4 years and he wasn't allowed to progress within that mission because the so-called Muslims turned on him and were basically worldly, materialistic, taghuti souls who actually fought him and then subsequently continued to do this with every one of the Aima since. Every one of the imperialistic governments that you see after Imam Ali alayhi salam bears no resemblance to the society that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, wanted to create. It bears no resemblance to the vision of Imam Ali alayhi salam or Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Today we have the Islamic Revolution of Iran, which has initiated the first, if you like, steps since, I believe, Imam Ali alayhi salam in trying to fashion a governance which is based on justice and on the obeisance to Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. Yet still we have Muslims who are completely blind to it. We have Shia who are completely blind to the fact that they have an obligation. We have Urafa, we have ulama, we have faqirs who are totally ignored in terms of their social political vision. We have Imam Khamenei, for instance, who's saying, look, we're on the path to the second phase of the revolution in which we have to establish a new Islamic civilization. What concern do Muslims or the Shia, particularly who are only ritual and symbolistically inclined, have with this vision, the idea of creating an Islamic civilization? What connection do they have? Rather than joining that call or working on that call, what we're doing ultimately is predominantly just following the taghut of our time, following the cultures of our time, affirming the imperialists of our time on every issue I can think of. Let me give you a few examples before I conclude, because I've got much more intelligent guests than myself here who will probably pick up on these things. But let me say, for example, the failure of our institutions outside the Islamic Republic of Iran in particular. We have no think tanks, we have no research units that are funded to the extent where we can come up with policies around social, cultural, political, or other visions. In our opposite camp, whether it's your Zionists or the neoliberals or the neocons, they have maybe tens of thousands of think tanks funded beautifully to research what their vision is, how they're going to implement it, how they're going to try and take their people along that lines. These people are taghut. They are followers of the false gods. They are the people who are oppressors. They are the people who Imam Hussein alayhi salam, if he was here today, would take out. He would go and stand against them. They are the very people who are trying to stop the Imam Mahdi alayhi salam's vision being rolled out. Yet what do we Muslims do? We actually would prefer to let those institutions become more and more powerful and not to even think about creating our own. And what do? We create more symbols, more rituals, more following of the same old, mourning exercises which look into the past. Well, the past is great because it gives us the root of what we are in the present. But if you then don't apply that past in a way that the present can be impacted, then you're failing your duty to Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. So simply having an ARBA'EEN gathering is only the first step to me of awakening and creating a vision and of building institutions that can challenge all sorts of policies, for instance, like the modern day take on transhumanism, the modern day take of the Taghuti forces on biomedical terrorism, on rolling out untested vaccines on people, on imposing poverty and engineering poverty in the world, on tampering with weather so that we're herded into these ideas of climate change. There's no way we can create counter arguments against all these narratives that are being rolled out, for instance, by the Agenda 2030 of the UN, funded by the neoliberals and the money mafia that exists in this world, because we don't have the institutions to do it. And those that do exist, we don't recognize them. The most important of those is the institution of Balti Faqih in the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it is the only institution, I believe, which is fighting effectively, or at least making a go at fighting effectively. But even they have, by Ayatollah Khamenei's own admission, have a fair way to go to be able to stand up and provide a complete model. And that's not something that we're saying, that the Islamic Republic of Iran has the complete model, but it doesn't. There are still economic mechanisms and systems there which need to be done away with. There are still abilities to look at the medical, if you like, the most recent example COVID vaccines and medical rollouts, we should have had institutions that could analyze the data and the details that we were being given before such medical treatments were rolled out. But we don't. We don't have independent ones. We have people who are trained by the West who go back in, even our own institutions, and then roll out exactly what the WHO or what the Atomic Agency, the International Atomic Agency wants to do, or what the World Bank wants us to do, or what the various other institutional frauds want us to do. The Islamic dream, the prophetic dream, the Husseini dream, the Imam Mahdi dream needs to be grabbed by us. We need to intellectually, emotionally, and in every other way, spiritually, culturally, we need to embrace the idea that we have an obligation to lead the world towards a vision which is rooted in prophetics. We don't want their family depopulation methods. We don't want their destruction of family. We don't want their gay the political weaponization of the gay agendas. We don't want any of these things that they're rolling out to destroy humanity. Economic, if you like, injustices. We don't want their forever wars. And we need to say no. And we need to withdraw our consent from these. Not go to symbolic occasions once a year, say we've done our bit, come back and then join the Taghuti system. That's my kind of supplement to what I think Dr. Andrabi and Brother Gaddafi have already been hinting at, or certainly outlining.
Thank you so much, Mohsin Bhai. Moving on to Maulana, how do you see the point of view which have been made by Mohsin Bhai and Agha and Arabi, and most of who is responsible to create that society? We do have a life key, we do have that inner guidance we need, spiritual guidance or any kind of guidance we need if we look at it in this way. But how about the rest of the world? Obviously the Shia community lives around the globe, and we do certainly need a wilaya, you can say, community which could work on those guidance, which for instance Reverend Muslim shares with us, because through his knowledge and obviously wisdom. So who is responsible to do that? Why we are not motivated enough to take practical steps, as Mohsin Bhai suggested, that we do need certain for example, if we look at the media, for instance, we do need media houses, because at the moment the message of ARBA'EEN, for instance, or message of Ahlul Bayt is not being spread out properly, or if we look at the ways news is projected, for example, around the globe through even the Muslim media, or even the different English media, you take it, any media. But if you say there is no proper media we have as a for example Shia community who could project all those things which are really needed at this point of time, because when we say it, we don't find it, we do need those kind of research centers and kind of places where we can think think tanks and all that. So what are your thoughts on that? What kind of what we are lacking, where we are lacking, and why we are unable to achieve these goals? Brother Mohsin mentioned and Dr. Inayatullah and Arabi mentions. How do you see that?
Yes, I would say shukra to Dr. Inayatullah and to Mohsin. Normally when we sit on these platforms, it's very difficult to have a direct and frank conversation, really speaking to the particular issues that were mentioned by both Dr. Inayatullah and Brother Mohsin. So the conversation took a very nice surprise. And I think that it's good that when we analyze issues like the ARBA'EEN, that we must be critical and we must be direct and frank in our analysis of the situation. And I would 110% agree with what was said by Brother Mohsin previously. I think that even if we look at currently the narrative of ARBA'EEN and how it is projected in the West, very aptly that one, it is not projected in such a manner that a person that has no idea about Imam Hussein, that does not know about what happened in Karbala, that ARBA'EEN, this great journey and trek, is presented to them on this grand scale where 25 million people converge in Karbala. That is the important issue that Brother Mohsin mentioned, and that it must be addressed. But even further so, when we look in the Western countries, those figures in the Islamic and in the Shia world, especially, that have used their resources and their media and different tools to make themselves look synonymous with the Arba'in journey, are the very ones that would never recognize the Islamic Republic of Iran, who has facilitated and whose hand, whose resources, logistical support had resulted in the epic of the Arba'in that we see today. Because I think we all can agree, without the Islamic Republic of Iran, the grandeur and the scale of Arba'in that we see today, it would not have been there. This is the direct result of the victory of 1979 Islamic Revolution and of the Muslims under the leadership of Imam Khomeini coming together and directly opposing the order of the West, the un-Islamic order, and establishing an Islamic Imamiyya-based governance. Arba'in today, the way we see it happening, is a result of the Islamic Revolution and the Islamic Republic of Iran. But those that have made themselves synonymous in the West, that everything leading up to Arba'in, they have different media, different shows, different people traveling there. They have cameras and outlets and news from all over the Arba'in, making themselves synonymous with Arba'in. They would not recognize the Islamic Republic, but they will recognize the very enemies of the Islamic Republic. They themselves are from, for instance, the Western states, and they accept the guardianship of those Western leadership that is opposing Agenda 2030, for instance. They are opposing, or they are freely implementing the LGBTQ agenda, and these very same scholars would not say a word against them. They would never oppose them, but they would oppose the Islamic Republic of Iran. And these people make themselves synonymous with Arba'in in the West. So when we look at young people today and the scholars that they are looking forward to, the scholars that they are looking up to, are those very ones that do not recognize Islamic Republic of Iran and an Islamic system that oppose the Taghut, which Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would have opposed if he was currently with us today. The very Taghut that Imam Mahdi alayhi salam will oppose, and the very system today that we should oppose if we are the followers of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. So that is a very important point. I think that the next thing we should also address is that, correct, apart from the Islamic Republic of Iran, those of us outside of the Islamic Republic, our institutions have failed. In which way? That perhaps we have not invested enough in any form of championing the cause of Imam Hussein, the same way the enemies of Islam and the enemies of humanity, that they have invested in establishing their tools and their systems to forward the ungodly agenda. And I think this is something that is very important and something that we must look into. Said Mohsen, you mentioned, for instance, think tanks, that we do not have think tanks. But I think this falls through for all other tools that we have. When it comes to media, our enemies, the enemies of Islam, those that are openly our enemies and those that are injected amongst us, that masquerade under the cloaks and under the turbans as well, they have invested money and all resources into moving with their agenda, an agenda which bypasses the Islamic Republic, an agenda which accepts the guardianship of the ungodly systems. And within ourselves, unfortunately, we have failed to promote our message and to bring our message to the broader public in that same grandeur that they have done it. And this, unfortunately, is a struggle today. Yes, we do have some, like this very production that we are on, alhamdulillah, that is doing good and trying to bring about the true Husseini message to the people, but it is very few amongst us. And the standard that we present, I don't think we can compare yet to the enemies that we are trying to defeat. So these are some of the aspects that we must challenge. And I think the third or the fourth of one overall point is that, yes, the Arba'een, it is an opportunity, and it is a failed opportunity where we have so many people coming together and we rejuvenate ourselves when we're in the presence of the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I think that we must never forget the importance of the ziyarah, right? That for us to go to visit the shrines of Ahlul Bayt, of Imam al-Hussein, of the ulama and the shuhada buried all around Iraq. Sayyid, for example, Muhammad Baqir Sadr, Sayyid Sadiq Sadr, Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Hakim, and the various martyrs of the Hashar and others, that when we go and we make this journey, that when we go to visit, that it rejuvenates ourselves, that when we spend so much time away and we navigate in a world where the forces around us are pulling us away from God, and that when you come to Karbala, when you visit any of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, this is a rejuvenation of the soul. And this is a rejuvenation that we need. That you come with yourself and that you submit. You visit Imam al Hussein alayhi salam. It shakes your heart. It creates a revolution within ourselves when you shed those tears and you remember that Al Hussein, along with 72 companions, a 6-month-old baby, Ali Asghar, that they gave their lives and everything purely out of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, purely in defense of Islam, to protect this religion and this way of life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent with the Prophet to become a protection for humanity against the evil of the shayateen. So this visitation is something that we need, and it rejuvenates ourselves, but it can become a wasted exercise. It can become merely a ritual that after we have performed ziyarah, after we visit Al Imam Hussein, after you open up yourself, that you shed your tears, that you submit to this great sacrifice, but then it does not transform us. That if we have not now lived or in our lives follow practically what steps the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, then we have failed ourselves. And of course, this can be done on the individual level, or it can be done on the holistic level, in the manner of Arba'een, where many people can perhaps go, but we have not implemented the understanding of Al Hussein in our actions. And this is something that we must be wary of. But of course, we are also blessed with various enlightened brothers amongst us and sisters, three of whom I'm sharing the platform with today, and various scholars out there, scholars from the Islamic Republic, scholars like Sheikh Hamza Saudagar, Sayyid Sheikh Muzaffar, Haidar, and various others that have stepped up to the mantle, and that they remind us and they remind the masses about that responsibility, that not only should we perform ziyarah, but ziyarah should be a transformation within ourselves. And so, although there are many lessons that can be learned, and there are many things that must be improved so that we can actually get to the height and to the peak of what Arba'een is supposed to symbolize. We do accept and we do realize also the significance of the Arba'een walk, and we recognize the Islamic Republic of Iran in allowing us to have. Remember, a few years ago under Saddam, this very Arba'een, it was infamous. And Alhamdulillah, today we have the opportunity to do the ziyarat of the Ma'sumin and the Shuhada of Karbala. So, Arba'een, it always holds an important place within the hearts of the believers. And of course, with everything, there is space for improvement. Inshallah.
Thank you so much. We need to keep a track of the time as well. So I'm just we are heading towards the end of the show. So I'll give you like 3 to 4 minutes, Aga. What are your thoughts on the collectively on this discussion, and what do you think the improvements we can make looking at the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, connecting it to the mission of Imam Zamana, and if we look at the revolution of obviously Inqilab in Islami. So how do you connect? What are the things we can still do? Obviously there is a lot of room to do things in an effective way. So there are 2 to 3 minutes you have. So if you can conclusively say something about it.
Yes, I will make some brief comment on what Mohsin earlier said and what Maulana has said now. Obviously, about the think tanks, we don't have, and they are needed in the sense that we should be always understanding the reality outside us. And because things keep changing. Things are not what they were yesterday. Every this is uh, uh, this is Allah's creation, and things are not. It's not a pagan thought, a pagan view that a certain age was golden, and now it's all age is golden because all age is created by God. Time is God's creation. Every time, uh, it's never possible. I'm talking to you a minute before was different from this. What is now? So we need to have an updated understanding of our friends, of our enemies, of the forces, everything. That's okay. And uh, what Maulana was saying, that's very important. He highlighted the importance of Islamic Revolution of Iran acting in the background, sort of, as a because yes, ARBA'EEN processions have been increasing in size. Iran is not issuing appeals about it, but it's not happening in vacuum. It is happening in a setting in which, for the first time, as Mohsin said, and he rightly traced it to Imam Ali, and in a recent vlog I did about the Iran-Saudi that pact some months back when I did a vlog, I said there that for the first time, Tashayyu had acquired, and I defined what Tashayyu was. I mean, Tashayyu was Islam Nabi Muhammadi, what Imam Khomeini used to say. For the first time, it required the material strength which it lacked. For the first time, it had a huge state of Iran, a resourceful state, a state full of material resources. So Iran is acting in the background, and this is absolutely right. Just a ritualized ARBA'EEN, yes, not much. But now, when I was in Iran last year in Qom, I was talking to my wife there that look, the dedication of the people at the shrine of Masuma, and I told her, look, they have come with a religious sort of what they have, but there's an environment in Iran that their religious sentiment can be easily translated to political objectives. Imam Khamenei will say tomorrow that come out in streets. Same people who are in the shrine, they will come out in streets. And that's the whole truth behind, that's the whole secret of how Iran could withstand the sanctions all these years. Because people are behind it, people are religious sentiment connects them to the supreme leader, and the supreme leader can translate it into political objectives. That's how it works. So I would say as a sort of as a social scientist, as a keen observer of what's happening, I will say that decks have been cleared. The Tashayyu was always religiously sound because it derived from Ahlul, but it was politically lacking. The political dimension has been added, so decks have been cleared, and it's a matter of time, as I see it, that the things will move forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Indrabi. I'll move on to Brother Mohsen. We just are like going towards the end. So, how would you make an allegiance to Imam of our time? So, what do you think? What should we write in that allegiance, and what must be done conclusively? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think before you could make any kind of program as to what Imam Mahdi al-Islam might want, you have to get your own values of right and wrong absolutely sorted out. You've got to have the knowledge to be able to discern between falsehood and truth. This means research. This means reading. It means sitting with wise people. It means giving authority to those people who are courageous, brave, intelligent, wise, and have basira. It means that you've got to stop having arrogance and ego yourselves, and you've got to look at the reality of your situation. Let me focus on myself. I mean, rather than pointing at other people, let's look at living here in England. One of the things that we know we've got is a censorship issue. that anybody who wants to tread this path of trying to reveal truth or trying to expose the lies and the falsifications of establishment does get censored. It's not an easy path. You will get targeted. Your careers may be jeopardized. You may have to sacrifice. You may even not have the same level of financial income as a result. What did Imam Hussein al-Islam require us to do? Did he at that stage require us to sit back and say, no, those things are more important, we should put them as a priority? Or did he say, in spite of those dangers and those threats, that we still take a stand, that we still put our heads on the block for truth and for haqq and for justice? Well, I would say that on a practical level, everything that's coming out of, for instance, the Zaya Western establishment at the moment is ultimately an attack on Islam and Islamic values, whichever way you want to look at it. Whether it's the promotion of the the hypersexualization of children, whether it's the promotion of gender fluidity, whether it's the promotion of political feminism, whether it's their push on LGBTism, whether it's their push on saying we should all follow the climate change. I mentioned some of these things earlier. Go and learn. First of all, go and research. We have an obligation in the West where we have knowledge, we have ease, we can go and read. We have access to all the knowledge, information. First of all, go and educate yourself about practical, social, cultural, political realities. And once you've educated yourself more deeply than just going to the first page of Google, or you've educated yourself a little bit more deeply than listening to your mate at work, then you'll be in a position to be able to recognize right from wrong. Those who actually will ultimately be able to find the right leadership are those who will first of all be able to work out what truth is. So to do that, our obligation, certainly in the West, where we have relatively more access to knowledge and resources, is to first of all educate ourselves. Secondly, is to have the courage then, once we understand that the system is attacking Islam, to have the courage and the bravery not to back off and to stand up for the truth. And what do you do with that knowledge? There are millions of people in this land who don't know about Islam. Dawah should be a huge thing in terms of the followers of Imam Mahdi al-Islam. Once we have the knowledge, we have the spirituality, we have the political direction, it's our job to invite others. It's our job to educate the others who are being oppressed. The Western people here are just as oppressed in many ways as our people in the East. What is our obligation to a child going to school, receiving sex education at the age of 4, which starts teaching about all sorts of things that he doesn't need to know about at that stage? Our obligation is to stand up and to be able to help our brethren who are not of our faith, but brethren in humanity, as Imam Ali said, is to stand up and help them and be the lead, take the knock. Not to be cowards and to sort of cower in the background. That isn't a Husseini line. That isn't a Husseini look. It's not an Imam Ali look. It's not a prophetic look. Courage and knowledge and wisdom and doing good and selfless service are at the heart of prophetic and Ahlul Bayti values. And we need to first of all have the knowledge and the wisdom first before we can act. We have that direction though. We have great ulama. But I think I see quite often people don't even know which ulama to follow. They don't know the ones who are scared and being cowardly and censoring themselves, because many of our alims are going to be forced to censor themselves. Many of our intellectuals, many of our community leaders are being forced to self-censor because they know the consequences, potentially, of standing up and being a Husseini. So now we're becoming selective Husseinis. We select certain parts of Husseinism and those parts which will keep us safe. Personally, I can't buy into a Husseinism of that kind. You have to be truthful and honest at every level, and you have to help society by leading by example and by standing up against injustice at every level. I think that's an absolute, that is my allegiance to Imam Mahdi al-Islam. That is my commitment ultimately to doing his bay'ah, is my action.
Thank you so much, Brother Hussain and Mohsin Bhai and Dr. Naitullah Indarabi and Maulana Zainul Abidin Qazafi. I'm really honored to have you all on the show.
Yeah,
and I think
one last thing can I say?
Yeah, sure. Go on.
Yeah, one last thing is that after if you study the Western civilization, their history, and all this, one thing becomes very important, that the system of marjia and society, we having people, the marjas, guiding and being experts. This is absolutely essential. If this goes, the whole thing goes. This has to be, because this is more in danger in West. Because when we see some people, some ulama not talking the relevant things, we start doing our own. But we must, obviously, everyone has to be a believer in his own right. Belief is not, inherited, but we have to follow this social system, this socio religious system of following marjia and marjia system. This must be guarded. This is absolutely important.
Hmm. And there's one more thing what I personally feel is we need to educate our society enough that they could fight with the fear of like death or hindrances and calamities which comes in the way of Imam of our time. Obviously, when we are following the path of Imam of our time, obviously these things we have to face, and in that manner we do need to have that kind of like courage, as brother Muslim mentioned as well, and determination and wisdom, like that we could fight with that fear that is a biggest hindrance as well. I personally feel, maybe I'm right or wrong, I'm not sure, but leaving, I'm really honored to have you all on the show. It was lovely discussion, and thank you so much for joining in, and inshallah we'll take a leave now. And to all the viewers, I would say we do need to take practical steps, as our respected all honorable guest said. And practical steps required wisdom, required knowledge, required allegiance to Imam of our time as well. If you understand your mission, you need to educate yourself on those grounds, what mission required, not what your emotions required. So emotions are separate from the real mission, and the practical work is separate from emotional life or and all that. So I'll take a leave, inshallah. See you next week. Have a great day. Take care. Allah Hafiz.